Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We, as a community, are joining other communities in the region, in the DMV area, in observing what the Jewish Coalition Against Domestic Abuse, JCADA, is calling Teal Shabbat, which is a Shabbat to bring appropriate attention and seriousness and help to issues around sexual assault and domestic abuse in our community and in the world in general. And so as I was beginning to talk to JCADA about how we as Bethel would observe Teal Shabbat this year, we started to talk about maybe they could bring us a speaker or what would we want to do. And then when they heard that Debbie Feinstein is a member of our shul and was willing to speak, they were like, I think you're good. That sounds amazing. That you have an incredible speaker in your community. So we're very lucky to have Debbie sharing some words of Torah this morning. I'm going to share a little bit about her bio, although I know many of you have known her for a very long time. She's a beloved, longtime member of our community. And I'll say that the beginning of the bio that she gave me, her first claim to fame was a Bethel claim to fame, having been one of the co-founders of Minyan Chaverim. So that is really beautiful that of her incredible career, that's what she listed first. She's been a prosecutor with the state's attorney's office for Montgomery County for the past 23 years. And in 2012, she became the chief of the Special Victims Division, where she's responsible for supervising and prosecuting cases involving a lot of different types of crimes, including homicide, child physical abuse, sexual abuse and exploitation, domestic violence, elder abuse, human trafficking, and sexual assault. This is truly incredibly sacred and important work in our world. She's also a teacher. She's also an adjunct professor at the Washington College of Law at American University. And we are so lucky to have her teaching this morning. Her talk is entitled Shining Light into Dark Spaces, Preventing Domestic Abuse in the Jewish Community. So I want to welcome Debbie.
Shabbat Shalom. Today's Parsha, Tzav, begins with a description of procedures related to the ritual of the burnt offering. In addition, the opening verses describe the maintenance of the altar fire and the area around the altar. The Parsha mandates that the fire on the altar must be kept burning all night until morning. And every morning the priest shall feed wood to it. A perpetual fire shall be kept burning on the altar, not to go out. Esh tamid tukad al hamitzbeach lo tikbeh. Rashi notes that the term tamid is the same term used to describe the ner tamid, the eternal light. While we no longer have an altar, we do have a ner tamid glowing in our synagogue and in synagogues around the world. The ner tamid too must remain lit, reminding us of our connection to God and our duty to do good in the world. So how is this connected to the purpose of today? As Rabbi Megdal noted, the Jewish Coalition Against Domestic Abuse created Teal Shabbat to shine a light on the tactics of intimate partner violence and to show victims that they are not alone. By participating in Teal Shabbat, Bethel identifies itself as a safe space for those who are impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault. Shining light, keeping the flames burning, is relevant to the issue of domestic violence. Domestic violence often exists in the darkness, in hidden places, and victims can feel silent, alone, and isolated. Domestic violence takes many forms. We most often think of physical abuse, but domestic violence can be financial, it can be sexual, it can be technological, it can be emotional, it can be verbal. The most obvious is the physical, but all of these types of abuse are insidious. Domestic violence exists in the same numbers, in the same statistics across all communities. So while today I'm talking about domestic abuse in the Jewish community, I'm really talking about domestic abuse in every community. Domestic violence, the statistics are no different in the Jewish community than they are in any religious community, any gender, any sexual orientation, any race, any socioeconomic background. It may get reported in different rates, but the volume, the numbers are identical. Domestic violence is about power and control, victimizing behind closed doors, maintaining appearances, evoking shame in the abused persons, even making them blame themselves. On average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million men, women, and those who identify not as men or women. And I think it's important for me to note now, as I recite these statistics, most of the studies that have been done to date do identify or do separate by male and female gender. There are studies that are just beginning to identify individuals who don't identify as male or female, and we're starting to see those studies come out. But when I refer to these statistics, these are the ones that we have right now. I will note that the incidence of domestic violence and sexual assault among the LGBTQA plus community is higher, unfortunately, than the statistics I'm going to give you for the general population. So, as I said, on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. This means that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. On a typical day, more than 20,000 phone calls are placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide. And intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime. Maryland statistics relate to the same. They reflect the same. About 35% of Maryland women and 29% of Maryland men experience intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner rape, or intimate partner stalking. In 2021, 58 people were killed by domestic violence in Maryland. 37 were intimate partners, and 13 of them were the abuser themselves, and 5, including 2 minor children, were bystanders. 76% of the deaths involved a gun. 1/3 of the murders happened at a time when the victim had left or was in the process of leaving their abuser. The deck is stacked against domestic violence victims as they navigate to safety. Abusive partners work really hard to keep victims trapped in the relationship. They may try to isolate the victim from friends and family, and that reduces their ability to go to places for support because they're being isolated. They also employ tactics of financial abuse. They create financial barriers to safety, again, making it more difficult for a victim of domestic violence to leave. There's a real fear of death or more abuse if they leave, as abusers perceive this act of independence as a threat to the power and control that they've worked to gain, and they may choose to escalate the violence in response. On average, 3 women die at the hands of a current or former intimate partner every single day. Through gaslighting, abusive partners cause victims to feel like they are responsible for the abuse. Gaslighting is a form of abuse that abusers use to confuse and to shift blame onto the victim. This often causes the victim to doubt their sanity and to feel like they are responsible for the abuse, and therefore they're unable to stop it. Abuse takes an emotional and physical toll over time, which can translate to additional health issues that make leaving more difficult. Survivors often report that they want the abuse to end, not the relationship. A survivor may stay with or return to an abusive partner because they believe the abuser's promise to change. It takes someone 7 times to be physically abused, on average, to actually leave an abusive partner. It's a pretty startling statistic. So how can we help? How as a community can we make a difference? First of all, thank you for being here to hear this talk today, for those of you on live stream and for all of those today in the congregation. You're already helping. It's really important to be educated and to be knowledgeable about this issue because, as I described, domestic violence often exists in the darkness. It's shameful. People are afraid to say anything. And particularly in communities where there's some level of affluence or socioeconomic, higher socioeconomic situations or higher education, it becomes even harder for someone to reveal that they've been domestically abused because they're ashamed. They feel responsible for what's going on with them, and they don't want anyone to know what is happening in their home. I notice, because I've been doing this for so long, that when I look at the types of cases that come into my office, a lot of them that we see are cases where the victim lives in a multifamily dwelling or an apartment or a townhouse. Why? Because someone else can hear the abuse and report it. It's not that it's not happening as often in a single family home or a home that sits on, yards and yards of land. It's happening just as often, I'm so sorry to say. It's just the abuse is not as often reported. And so that's why we need to all be aware and know the signs so that we can recognize them and help our friends and our family if they are experiencing domestic violence. And when I say 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men, if we look at the congregation today, our congregation is divided into 3 seating areas. This means that one entire seating area, not that any of you necessarily, of course, but that one entire seating area statistically is a victim of domestic abuse. Again, not that it's anyone here, I'm just trying to sort of display, by visually understanding what these numbers are like, because again, it is so insidious and so common, but not as commonly reported. So what do we need to look for? A friend or family member's behavior changing, particularly when they've gotten into a new relationship. Them spending more time alone or at home, canceling the things that they used to love to do, not coming to mahjong or poker night or book club or to events at the synagogue, just changing what they're doing. Physical appearance changing, wearing long sleeves in the summer, wearing a turtleneck when it's not appropriate, being ashamed of the way that they look. Someone changing their financial situation suddenly, making financial decisions that don't necessarily make sense to someone else. Obviously, physical abuse, oftentimes you can see it, although again, victims go to great length to hide that physical abuse. I'll tell you, I have a friend that was actually financially abused. He actually works in my office, and this happened when he was a young prosecutor. He was dating a woman who said to him, basically, you need to take me to all of these fancy places. You need to take me to these shows. You need to take me on these vacations. You need to take me to these dinners, because that's the only way you're going to keep me. And you're not good enough to have anyone else be with you. I'm the only one that's going to love you, and you need to do these things in order to stay with me, because you're not going to get any better than me. And he stayed in that relationship for so long. Again, this is someone who is a prosecutor in my office. I'm happy to report that he got out of the relationship. He is happily married to a wonderful person. But when he was in it, even he didn't necessarily realize what was going on because of the things like gaslighting, because of the financial abuse, because of the way that domestic violence abusers use people's weaknesses to twist it on themselves, to make them feel small. And that's what we all really need to be looking for. We also need to be looking for if someone we know is speaking in a way that's just not okay to their partner, or really to anyone, but to their partner, putting them down, demeaning them, or if your friend tells you that that's what's happening at home. And what do we say to that person? What we don't say is we don't say you should leave. It seems like that's what, of course, we're going to say, right? We're going to say, you should leave this person. What are you doing with this person? But the thing is, when someone is involved in a power and control relationship, telling them to do something is just another form of power and control. It's just another person telling them what to do. A victim of domestic violence is not going to leave their abuser until they're ready. So what do we say? I am here for you. It worries me when I see your partner doing X. So you focus on the behavior, not on the person. Because if you focus on the person, the abuser, they're going to be more inclined to protect that person. You say, it concerns me that I don't see you at these events that I usually saw you at. It concerns me that I see you're losing weight. Are you okay? I'm here. I'm your friend. I support you. If you hear about something that's going on in that home, I'm here for you. I'm here to walk beside you. If you want to talk to someone, let me tell you about the resources that exist in our community. Let me go with you. I'm happy to make that call with you. I'm happy to go with you to talk to someone. I am here for you. That is the central message of how we can help someone that's a victim of domestic abuse. We also need to be ready with the resources that are available in our community, the free, confidential, immigration blind resources that are available in our community. So the Jewish Coalition Against Abuse is an incredible resource in our community, particularly for the Jewish community. But I will tell you that my office, my entire division, is co-located at a place called the Family Justice Center in Montgomery County. And the Family Justice Center was started about 12, 13 years ago, and it co-locates services for victims of domestic abuse. So a survivor, can come into the Family Justice Center. They can not only receive therapeutic services and safety planning, but if there are immigration concerns, there's someone on site to help them with that. If there are housing concerns, if there is food insecurity, all of these things are available at the Family Justice Center, and those connections can be made. In addition, my division is there, as well as the police division that handles the investigations of domestic abuse. And if the person decides that they want to report to the criminal justice system, they can do that right there. If they want to get a protective order, they can get it via video hookup. We were the first county in the state to be able to connect victims via video to the court to get that first temporary or interim protective order. And victims can do that in the safety of the Family Justice Center. And I'm saying if they want to report to the criminal justice system, because for a lot of people, that is not the answer. People don't want to be involved in the criminal justice system. Again, there's shame, there's embarrassment, there's fear. As I talked about earlier, the most dangerous time for a victim of domestic abuse is when they are leaving their abuser. It's in that time period, when they are leaving or when they have left. That's what the statistics tell us. So it's completely understandable why someone may not want to report to the criminal justice system. And even though I'm a prosecutor, I can say to you definitively, the criminal justice system is not always the answer. But getting help and reaching out for support is. Getting those services wrapped around someone that is in an abusive situation so that they feel like they have a safe place to land, that is the critical part. So all of us can play a role in that. We may think that we don't know anyone that is involved in this type of a situation. But again, statistically, you may. You may. And we should all be aware and watch for the signs. I'm going to give a quick PSA for an event that's coming up in a couple of weeks. One of the things that I'm involved in is something called Choose Respect Montgomery, which is an initiative that focuses on preventing teen dating violence and sexual assault among teens. And every year, I know Mitchell's one of the biggest advocates of this. He's always reposting on Facebook, which I appreciate. Every year, we hold an annual event where we bring together teens from across the state, the county, and their parents. And this year, it's going to be a festival at the Wheaton Community Recreation Center. It's going to be on Sunday, April 16th, and it is free. There's free food. Students can earn SSL hours. There's giveaway. There's activities. And it actually is a way to sort of turn this topic in a positive and I don't want to say fun, but it's a light atmosphere. There's music. We have student bands performing. If you know anyone that has a band or a dance troupe or anything that wants to perform, we're still looking for performers. We're very interested in getting to highlight our community. But I would encourage you to let people know about that as well. You can get all of this information on the internet. I'm happy to circulate that and have Rabbi Megdal share that information as well about the Family Justice Center, about Jacada, and about these events for our teens. And we do events for adults as well, usually in the fall during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So if you sign up and follow us on social media, you'll be able to get all of that information and stay even more in touch with what's going on in our community. And really, that's my ask today, is to be aware of this issue and to stay aware of it so that you can help someone if they are in need. So again, our Torah portion, our parashah, says, a perpetual fire shall be kept burning, not to go out. Eish tamid tukad al hamitzbeach lo tikbeh. Knowing the signs, how to help a friend or a family member, and reducing shame and stigma around domestic violence gives us all the ability to keep the perpetual flame burning and to shine light in dark spaces. Shabbat shalom.